Alderman Arnowitz. Here. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderman Coder. Here. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad.
Present.
Alderwoman Boyd. Chairman Kennedy.
Here.
President Reed. You have 5 present, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Boyd is present.
Boyd is here.
You have 6 present.
Okay. We have several bills before the committee today. Alderman, if we could take our seats. We'll first take up Board Bill 62. Alderwoman Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So members of the Public Safety Committee, Board Bill 62 is an extension of a moratorium on 3 a.m. liquor license in the 28th Ward. So there are many neighborhoods in the 28th Ward that, residential neighborhoods that have dining districts in them. So from the High Point to Skinker to Bolivar Place, Central West End, and the neighbors and the businesses have really worked hard to maintain a balance that really protects the residents, the businesses, as well as the visitors. And the moratorium on 3 a.m. liquor license has been very helpful in maintaining that balance. So 2012 was the first time that the moratorium was introduced. It was renewed in 2015, and it expires June 29th. And so this bill would simply extend that moratorium on 3 a.m. liquor licenses for another 3 years.
Questions from members of the committee? Alderman Boyd. Any questions?
Yes.
Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderman Kotar.
No questions.
Alderman Muhammad.
No, sir.
No questions? With that, we can entertain a motion.
I move that we pass Board Bill 62 with a due pass recommendation.
It's been moved and seconded that we pass Board Bill 62 with a due pass recommendation. Is there any discussion from members on the motion? If not, Mr. Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderman Cone. Alderman Arnowitz.
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderman Coder.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd. Chairman Kennedy.
Aye.
President Reed. You have 6 aye votes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, would you please excuse Alderman Cone and Alderwoman Hubbard and Boyd?
Thanks, man.
Next, we will take up Board Bill 53. We have someone to discuss the, there's a committee substitute. Oh, those are not before everybody.
No, we didn't make it like you said we didn't make it.
Right. But you did have the
Right, so there's 2.
other committee sub.
Pass these to you. Give me a couple.
Oh, there's just,
Yeah, did you want for all? Did you want all?
yes. Each committee, they have the committee sub.
This is 53. That's a sub, committee sub. Is that all 53 committee sub?
No, 2 of you, so.
We can share. What the heck? They can share. Here. There's 53 committee sub. You guys are sharing. Terry, you and I can share.
54 committee sub?
That's 53.
Well, this is 54.
He said he has some more 53. Let's just put that back up.
Who took the other?
It's right here. That's 53.
You have a 53, Terry?
I have a 53.
I don't have one, but
Okay.
I'm okay.
That's 32.
I'll move over. Tell you what. I'll just move over next to
We'll
you.
just share it.
No, I'm okay.
We're fine. I got it.
I move over.
That's a 53, isn't it?
32. Oh, you have
No.
it right there, right there.
I didn't, because you just handed it to me.
Okay.
That's when I moved over next to you.
We're fine. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and honorable members of the Public Safety Committee. We're here this morning to talk about various board bills, 53 through 57, I believe. I've got Ron Brendel, our code development specialist, here to talk a little about the committee substitute, just to explain that. So I'll let Ron go ahead and do that at this point.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Basically, the substitutes were just to correct minor errors. For an example, in the building code, 53, it was strictly a case where we discovered that a section had been misnumbered. So we moved the number up. Instead of, there was no 105.3.6. It was just for some reason skipped, so we moved 103.5.7 up to change the number. Same way with section 429.2.1. It had somehow accidentally a number had been put into the original board bill, and so it was actually numbered 4279.2.1. We were just correcting typos. That's the same way with most of the other 4 bills. I can answer on each one or do it in general, if you would like.
We have to take each one.
Okay,
Yes,
but
we go
that's
about it.
what the 2 changes on 53 are.
Questions from members of the committee? Alderman Boyd,
No questions.
Alderman Vaccaro,
This is just solely on 53,
or just on 53?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Alderman Arnowitz,
No questions at this time.
Alderman Kotar,
No questions.
Alderman Mohammed,
I do have a question. In section 104, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In section 104 of rulemaking authority, does this take authority out of the fire marshal and place it in the building commissioner, or has it always been the building commissioner to have the authority?
are you on 53?
That's in 53.
Yes,
That,
I'm on 53.
they were on 53. The one you're speaking about is in 55.
Okay.
Is there something in 53 that?
We're going to talk about that when we get to 55, sir.
Is he dealing with 53?
No, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
The one that they're concerned about is 55.
So are all of them put into this? It's in the building code, residential code, and existing building code. So all this? Pardon me, sir? All the, Terry's okay with this.
So, were you,
He's on page 10.
let them finish, and we'll come back to you. Alderman Mohammed, go ahead with your question.
No, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Vaccaro?
Are all of the changes, 53, 54, 55, they're all in this one amendment? They're not separate? No, they're separate. Each one. They're just all stapled? Each one of the 5 bills has minor changes to them. But they're all stapled together? No, sir, you're going to have different packets. Hold in your hand for each of the 5 bills you're going to look at today. Okay. The only reason I ask is because I had asked the chairman if he wouldn't mind holding 54 and 55 until next week. I wanted to have a meeting with both the Sierra and the home builders, and I was going to ask if you would come and some of the members so that we could just find out if there's some compromise that can be reached. And then the fire. I don't know why you would want to hold 55 because it has nothing to do with. Well, and 55 is
Okay, if we could stick
firefighter.
with 53 right now.
Okay, I just wanted to explain. Okay, but that was, I'm sorry.
Okay. Are there any other questions of members of the committee? If not, then we can entertain a motion to put committee substitute 53 before us.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we place Board Bill 53 committee substitute in front of the committee.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
Previous roll.
Is there any discussion on the motion? There's been a request for previous roll. Any opposition to previous roll? By your vote, we have placed Board Bill 53 committee substitute before the committee. If no other questions, we can entertain a motion for the adoption of Board Bill 53.
I move that we adopt Board Bill 53 committee substitute.
Second.
With a due pass recommendation.
With a due pass recommendation, my apologies.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt Board Bill 53, committee substitute with a due pass recommendation. Any discussion on the motion? There's been a request for previous roll. Is there any opposition to previous roll? And by your vote, we've adopted committee substitute for Board Bill 53 with a due pass recommendation. Okay, then. I want to go to 56 first. 55, 56. Does everybody have it in front of them?
It should, you just hand out a stack.
Okay.
This is the committee stuff right here. And then you have 2 copies of
Okay.
56.
I'd like to take up committee substitute to Board Bill 56 next. 56.
Energy Conservation Code, yes, sir. Again, there are 2 errors on that one. The first one was the same as what we talked about under the building code, where it was a section that was, we just discovered we had skipped a number and just moved everything up. And the other one was just a typo where a space was added between 1009.2 and 1009.3, and we forgot the .5 after 1009. 1009. So we're at .5, that was just, again, typos we were correcting.
Questions from members of the committee? Alderman Boyd?
No question.
Alderman Vaccaro?
I probably have a question, maybe even of the chair, but wouldn't these be a Scribner's error and not require a committee sub, or am I wrong on that? I always thought Scribner errors, like missing periods and codes, don't require a committee sub.
Well,
I mean, I'm fine with
Yeah,
the
but-
committee sub, but I'm just saying, that's my understanding, that it doesn't require a committee sub.
No, you can do it with a committee sub.
It can be done.
Okay, that's fine. But, okay, for my own personal, it could also be a Scribner's error, or am I,
Well,
Off.
it could be a Scrivener's error, but I think in this context, since it has a material as to how you would read the bill, I think that this is fine.
okay, thank you.
Alderman Ornowitz?
No, the alderman from the 23rd here was confused last passing this time.
Alderman Kotor? Alderman Muhammad?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. With that, we can entertain a motion to put committee sub to 56.
I move that we put committee sub 54, Board Bill 54 committee substitute before the committee.
56.
Oh, sorry, 56. I move that we put Board Bill 56 committee substitute before the committee.
Second.
Any request for previous roll?
Previous roll.
Been moved and seconded to replace Board Bill, committee substitute for Board Bill 56 before the committee. There's been a request for previous roll. Is there any opposition to previous roll? Seeing,
Object.
oh, yes. We have opposition to previous roll. We're going in. No, we do not have opposition to previous roll. Seeing no opposition, by your vote, we have placed Board Bill 56 committee substitute before the committee. Now we will entertain a motion for the adoption of committee substitute.
I move that we adopt Board Bill 56 committee substitute with a due pass recommendation.
I'll second that, and ask for previous roll.
Been moved and seconded that we adopt.
Add Pam, don't want to add Pam to the roll?
She said no.
Okay.
She says no. Been moved and seconded that we place Board Bill 56 committee substitute, that we adopt Board Bill 56 committee substitute with a due pass recommendation. There's been a request for previous roll. Is there any opposition to previous roll? Seeing no opposition, by your vote, we have adopted committee substitute for Board Bill 56 with a due pass recommendation. Now we'll take up Board Bill 57. Committee sub. If you could go.
And these are, well, the first one was a typo where there was on page 10, line 1819, where there was a double typing. Somebody started typing something, got distracted, and started typing it over. So the first part needed to be removed. The second was a line that was requested by the city councilor's office that it be removed. We're just cleaning up that section.
Any questions from members of the committee? Alderman Boyd?
No questions.
Alderman Vaccaro? Alderman Arnowitz? Alderman Kotor?
No questions.
Alderman Muhammad?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Alderwoman Boyd?
No question.
Okay, then. Seeing no further questions, we can entertain a motion to place this before us.
I would make a motion to place Board Bill 57 as
Committee sub.
amended committee sub in front of us.
Second and previous row.
Been request for a previous roll that we place Board Bill 57, committee substitute before the committee. There's no opposition to previous roll. By your vote, we have placed Board Bill 57, committee substitute before the committee. Now we can entertain a motion to adopt committee substitute.
We adopt committee 57, committee sub.
With the
Do pass
Pass
recommendation.
recommendation.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt Board Bill 57, committee substitute with a due pass recommendation. There's been a request for previous roll. Is there any opposition to previous roll? Seeing no opposition, you want to be on?
She voted on this one.
She voted on this one. Seeing that there is no opposition to previous roll, by your vote, we have adopted Board Bill 57, committee substitute with a due pass recommendation. Upon the request of some of our committee members, we will hold 54 and 55 until next Tuesday. We have a committee hearing next Tuesday, and we will take a vote at that time on those two bills. That will give you the time to clarify what you need to clarify, but we would like to move on with it after that.
And we will. So anybody on the committee, I'm going to set up in the Kennedy Room a meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning with the Sierra Club and the home builders. I would ask that, Frank, if you would show up with anybody you would like. I'm hoping we can find a compromise. I've never seen a bill that I have been as conflicted on as this. I agree with both sides. And I just want to maybe we can come to some middle ground. Maybe we can't, but I would like that opportunity to try, and then I will vote one way or the other.
Okay, we'll hold it till next
Mr.
week.
Chairman, I think we could go 55 on the fire code. I think we have resolved the situation with the fire department on our substitute, and there should be no reason to delay that.
Well, I can just say that
Go right ahead.
the firefighters union, Al called me, and I'm sure you're right, but he hadn't seen it. And so I had asked, and I don't think it's going to make a difference if we pass it today or next Tuesday. So I would just like, that it's written in a way that they feel. And since on these bigger things like this, and I have no real good knowledge of building codes or anything else, I usually go by, I start getting a lot of people calling me objecting to something, I always want to at least listen. So at the beginning of this, I did tell the firefighters that I would listen. I know their part, and I'm sure it's in there, that they want to be able to, like if there's something big going on, whether it's at the stadium or the VP Fair or something, that they would have firefighters present at those things. And I would assume they're addressed in there.
There's no,
There's been no change. That's,
we'll
that's why,
clarify all
that's what I,
We'll get-
that's why,
yeah, we'll just clarify it, and it will be on the agenda for next, with the other bills, and hopefully we can just get them all out at that time. So,
What time would that be, sir?
I'm sorry, 8 o'clock.
No,
no, the committee hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's 10 o'clock next Tuesday, here in this room.
Okay.
It has already been on the schedule. Hopefully, another committee will not schedule their committee hearing at the same time as this one. But it's next Tuesday at 10.
Tuesday, whatever date that one. What-
Here. What he's talking about is a separate meeting.
8 o'clock.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Then that completes us on those bills. We will take up Board Bill 32. Alderman Boyd. For which one? For which one? 32. Oh, 32, okay. Alderman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Board Bill 32 is a bill that basically eliminates plat and petition procedures for certain types of businesses, but it also opens up the opportunity for people who may feel like they're directly impacted by that type of business that otherwise would be outside that circle to participate and protest in any way. Rebecca from City Council office can talk to you more in detail. We provide a cheat sheet, which I believe is being handed out to everybody. Terrence just handed out a cheat sheet about all the different changes.
It's this, it's a summary.
It's a summary.
The summary of amendments?
Right,
Okay.
it explains everything in detail about why we made every single change.
Right.
So,
And we haven't had a chance to actually talk about the basic bill 32 that we submitted to. So we will be talking about the bill and some added amendments to the bill with a substitute to come behind it. But I wanted Rebecca to pretty much talk more in detail about it. She's the technical expert.
good morning. So Board Bill 32 relates to the license code, which is Title 8. Under the license code, we have a number of different businesses that require a plat and petition process. Technically, when we think of plat, it refers to, as it is right now in the zone, under the licensing code, it refers to the internal area as well as the external area of the business. And so the applicant is required to submit, I guess, a plat as well as this, and it's kind of a diagram that's drawn by the zoning office to assist with the BPS in doing so, this radius. And they have to collect signatures, and it's a very time-consuming process for businesses to collect all the neighborhood signatures that are within the radius. It's problematic as it's written now to review it, to figure out who's properly authorized to sign the petition. So, the concerns about this have been going on for some time, and we have decided to try to streamline it. These businesses will still have to go through a process at the zoning level. So some of them didn't have conditional use hearings, but will have conditional use hearings now. That will then, in turn, open up the opportunity for people who are in the neighborhood but can't sign a petition, to come forward and talk about how they feel about the business being in their neighborhood and whether they think it's appropriate. The other thing that it does is it still maintains, and I point this out in my comments in the summary, some of these businesses already had a revocation process through neighborhood protest petition that you could submit. If that is there currently, I did not remove it. So the opportunity to get rid of this business if something happens that's problematic for the neighborhood, if it is there now, they still have that same avenue to turn around and go through that neighborhood process to revoke the business license. I did not want to eliminate that tool. That was a policy that the Board of Aldermen had previously made. Some of the businesses don't have that right now that are currently under the consent petition. I can't get into an explanation as to why there's a differentiation with how they're treated, equity standpoint, from the standpoint of why one has it and one doesn't. I didn't want to disturb whatever policy that the decision makers had made before with respect to that, so I left it as it is. I didn't start getting into changing it and giving them the same option. If you guys want to do that, then, that I can understand that, but as it is right now, that has not been disturbed. Basically, all that does is it strips the plat and petition process and sends it to the zoning conditional use hearing, which is a companion bill that's already passed out of committee. And then what this also does is it makes corrections for little things like legal issues that come up with the state laws or federal laws, like having somebody's social security number on the application. So I specifically detail at length through these 6 pages of summary why I made the changes to each of them. And that way, it's very clear, hopefully very clear, to all of you why those changes were made. It was done in a very, what I call, surgical precision approach. I didn't want to get in and disturb, the policies that were made previously about some of these things. So it was very tailored and narrow as far as what I did. And we made the decision to put it all into one bill versus trying to separate it out to all these different little bills. So that's why we had to do a full repeal and a full replace, and a lot of research was done on my end to try to make sure I caught every single prior ordinance that existed, including going back into the code books into the 1850s, trying to find the original ordinance number. So that kind of is a summary of all of this and what's been going on with this bill. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, also, I wanted to kind of talk about what was done as far as the committee substitute. Is it appropriate to talk about that at this time?
Go forward with it. We just need to overall understand. That's fine.
Okay, so in addition to that, after I gave this to Alderman Boyd to review, he came back with a comment, and I decided, based on his concerns, we would go ahead and do a committee sub to address that. One of the things that occurred with the neighborhood plat and petition process was figuring out for a radius standpoint, and this is actually only in the protest because we're obviously getting rid of the plat and petition process for the ability to actually have the business in the neighborhood. For the protest part of it, we were trying to delineate between people who we could verify were proper signatures. And I had decided to, in trying to make it clear that it would just be residents and property owners, and then looking at it more carefully, we realized that it might be eliminating some of the business owners, and we wanted to keep them in there. So we went back and we rewrote it in a way that it was clearer and fixed that in this committee sub. So, and it's only with certain businesses that had that protest option. So that's a summary of everything.
Did you have any additional comments before we?
It was just important to me that business owners would have an opportunity to protest and not just property owners or residents, because in some cases, majority of people that's generating revenue are the business owners, and I didn't want to leave anybody out.
Okay. We can entertain questions. Alderman Vaccaro.
No questions.
Alderman Ornowitz.
So basically, we're just eliminating the middleman who does the plat.
We're eliminating the plat and the petition, neighborhood consent petition.
Right.
And we're eliminating that process, and then in turn, continuing to allow neighborhood option by instead just having it go to the zoning, conditional use hearing.
So if people doesn't want something or in favor, they'll still have the opportunity to come there.
They'll still have the opportunity to voice their concerns, to weigh in, to show or not show neighborhood support for a business if they think it's appropriate or not appropriate for the neighborhood.
I'd like to add, Alderman, the other thing that's fair is the fact that people who may, so the plan petition, we do the 300 radius, right? My house made it, so I have a say-so, but you live across the street, so you don't have a say-so, with the plan petition. Now it's more equitable, because there are times where you may be 3 blocks over, but in some kind of way you can justify having an adverse impact on, as far as this business is operating.
I agree. I mean, I like the idea. I've always said, we make businesses jump through too many hoops. They don't jump through as many hoops in the county for a business. So I see why people get frustrated here. No, I like it.
Alderman Koto.
No questions.
Alderman Muhammad.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Alderwoman Boyd.
No, Jeffrey explained it to me. Thank you.
Alderman Vaccaro, you said you had a question.
Yeah, not a question, it was a comment that I agree. I tried to introduce similar last year, but I agree because right now, only the people within that little area have say, whether they agree or disagree with something. This involves the whole neighborhood where more people have say. So if you're at 400 feet, a half a mile, you have more say in the process. So now you kind of clarified it, but I was going to also bring that up, that this helps involve a larger group than just a small group.
I did have a question.
Yes, sir.
It's pretty simple. Of all of these types of businesses, all of them already had the conditional use hearing component?
No, I believe that some of them did not. And I unfortunately did not bring that with me,
that's
my
okay.
little cheat
That's
sheet.
okay.
But we specifically went through,
Right.
identified which ones didn't, and then
Right.
made them have a conditional use so that they would be covered if we took away this process
So
here.
some then just had plat and petition and no
Right,
conditional
right, right. So some just had plat and petition, some may have had conditional use, but, or have been outright prohibited, but not all of them had the equal process in place. So we decided that it would be better to go ahead and make sure that if we pulled the plat and petition, that they had to go to a conditional use hearing, so that way they, neighborhood could participate in the process and, indicate whether or not they thought it was appropriate for the neighborhood.
That's all I had. Did you have any further remarks?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to move that we put Board Bill 32 committee substitute before the committee.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we place Board Bill Committee substitute before the committee. There's been a request for previous roll. Is there any opposition to previous roll? Seeing no opposition by your vote, we place committee substitute for Board Bill 32 before the committee. Now we can entertain a motion to.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that Board Bill 32 committee substitute be adopted and with a due pass recommendation.
Been moved and seconded that we adopt Board Bill 32 committee substitute with a due pass recommendation. There's been a request for previous roll. Is there any opposition? Seeing no opposition by your vote, we have adopted Board Bill 232 with a due pass recommendation, committee substitute. 32, what did I say, 222? Yeah, we've adopted committee substitute for Board Bill 32 with a due pass recommendation. By your, seeing no opposition, we've adopted it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Spencer is here. That completes the agenda for today. We will take up, we'll take up 54 and 55 with the other building code bills next Tuesday, 10 a.m. here in the Kennedy Room.
Thank you for your consideration on that.
All right. With that, our meeting's adjourned.